Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome back to Warzone in Depth. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about the JOKR viability. This is going to be the last Warzone in Depth episode about the stuff that you know before the new season comes out, and that'll launch sometime 2-3 a.m. tonight. So in the following days, I'll have in-depths on the new weapons and new map changes, but for now, I want to talk about the JOKR. And as you all know me, I'm always trying to break the meta. I'm trying to learn something new, try to find a new thing, make something popular, be a trendsetter and a cool, fancy guy. And I really wanted to see if the JOKR was useful as a utility weapon. I know it's popular. I see great clips of it on Reddit. I see some of my more competitive friends using it and playing with it and showing it off. So I wanted to see if it could truly be good. And the idea behind it is to have a backup weapon that provides more options than the blind fire RPG. You just spam your RPG and that's it. But the JOKR can do a lot of other interesting stuff. Matter of fact, quite a lot of interesting stuff that made it very appealing to me. And unfortunately, this is one of those times where the theory of a thing and the practice of a thing end up being quite different, and the difference is bigger in practice than it is in theory. Overall, I did not have the best time with the JOKR, but I did learn some very interesting things about it, which we'll be covering in the rest of today's video. But first, I want to tell you about my sponsor, which is ASUS, and how they literally helped me make today's video with their graphics cards. Today's video is sponsored by ASUS, powered by NVIDIA GeForce RTX, which I think is a fantastic sponsor because this is exactly the graphics card that I use to get all of the gameplay, record, edit, render, shadow play capture, and do everything that you're seeing in the video today. So what ASUS wanted me to do was give you a little bit of info about their 20 series graphics cards. What makes ASUS graphics cards better than others is that they have what's called Auto Extreme technology, which is a 100% fully automated production process. And a lot of you will think that's kind of bad, like factory made. But the reality is that these parts are so small, tiny, and precise that when you allow humans to assemble any part of them, you get much bigger errors than any machine would ever make. So removing human error makes much higher quality cards, which for you as a gamer means a lot more reliability. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX graphics cards are powered by NVIDIA Turing, which is the world's most advanced GPU architecture for gamers, and you can do a lot of really cool stuff with it, including ray tracing, AI-powered DLSS 2.0, and you can use this on games like Minecraft RTX. So when you combine the quality of the Auto Extreme manufacturing, and you combine that with the raw capabilities of an RTX graphics card, you get one of the most reliable and visually immersive gaming experiences that money can buy. Be sure to check out the link in the description. And now we're back to in-depth. Don't expect a whole lot of hard stats here because the JOKR is primarily about subjective performance, but what we wanted to do is determine where the missile lands when you lock onto stuff, and after a significant amount of testing in private matches, we determined that the JOKR missile lands exactly where you mark. I mean, literally whatever you mark, and some of you might say, well, yes, that makes sense, but I personally always thought that it was just past the mark, maybe slightly above the mark, that it didn't exactly land where you marked, because where you mark is so often the edge of a building, and I want to say the MW3 Javelin would land like 1 meter in front of where you marked, so you could shoot it over the lip and edge of buildings, but we tested it again and again and again, and the missile tries its best to land exactly pixel perfect to your mark, so it doesn't go up, over, above, or anything. And if you shoot it at the lip of a building, it will pretty much always hit that lip and it will not land behind the lip. If anything, there's an odds of it landing below if it's kind of coming in at a slight angle, if it's like super duper far away. So you can't arc it over the lips of buildings, which in my opinion actually diminishes its usefulness, because my fantasy behind the weapon is that it would do that and ultimately does not. So your enemies need to be very near the edge of whatever you're locking onto to kill them, and hopefully not proned out or behind a goofy little corner. I will say there's one interesting thing you can do with it, which I do not have footage of, and that's that you can shoot the missile straight up. It pretty much always just shoots straight up when you fire, but if you're looking up, you can just shoot it straight up stairwells, which is kind of hilarious. Stairwells are really hard to clear in Warzone. They're brutal, they're unfair, they're punishing. However, if you are able to stand at the bottom of a stairwell and somehow not get laser beamed to death, you can lock on to the roof, shoot it straight up the middle of all the stairs, and it'll blow up any camper sitting at the top. This is not a scenario that I have ever encountered any time that I've had a JOKR, and very few times when I didn't and I wanted one, so I don't think it would be very common, but I have seen people do it on Reddit. One neat thing is that the JOKR has an alternative thermal vision mode that you can toggle on and off. On PC where I play, that's shift. I think it's clicking one of the thumbsticks on PlayStation 4. And that's kind of a cool thing, because if you have this as your backup weapon, it's kind of like getting a free spotter tool or maybe a free thermal sight that you can toggle on and off and just use to scan for enemies. And I actually managed to do that quite successfully a lot of times, and that's one of the little pieces of utility that the JOKR has that none of the other launchers do that I thought might be useful, because I can just see enemies better. The JOKR can lock onto and one-hit kill any vehicle in the game, including the big trucks. Now this is in Warzone. Now if you're doing ground war, some of the bigger streaks might take more. But not all of the launchers lock onto vehicles. JOKR is one of 2 that can do it. It deals more damage than the Pila by a significant amount, and it really will one-hit anything. Anything that missile touches is done, including the giant armored trucks. Nothing stands in its way whatsoever, because the damage per hit is absolutely absurdly high. It's I think it's 350 damage in the middle, and the edge of the blast radius, which is 15 meters away, is, I want to say, 75 or 80 damage, which is still incredibly high. So if you hit an enemy anywhere in the middle, you're going to one-tap them. You're going to one-tap any of the vehicles. And even if you hit them on the outer radiuses, you run a decent chance of breaking armor, or at least forcing them to waste a few plates. And this is the part of the episode where we're going to start taking a turn for the worse. Those were all of the utility things about the JOKR. The neat thing it can do: shoot straight up, hit a lip and clear people off the buildings, has a thermal sight, locks onto vehicles, does a lot of really neat stuff. But it doesn't one-hit kill people who have on EOD, which is rather annoying. I think it will kill them if you like literally the missile lands on their head. But broadly speaking, if an enemy team is running EOD, it's going to take several missiles to kill them, which makes it pretty useless against a team like that. More useless than an RPG, because an RPG you can spam into a window over and over and wear them down, whereas this one takes so much setup, the other team's likely to reposition and move and just not get hit. It's also easily countered with a trophy system. I mean, that's something you all knew. Pretty standard, you counter all explosives with that. But the fantasy of the weapon, for all of its downsides that you have to deal with, you imagine it being like a free airstrike, and it's really not when a piece of equipment can counter it, and one a very common piece of equipment at that. The JOKR does require a clear sight line, and in my opinion, a dangerous amount of time to lock on. It doesn't lock on very quickly. You do need to maintain your aim roughly on that spot to get the lock on. You can't shoot at things that are obstructed, or you will kill yourself. If you're shooting from inside buildings or out of windows, occasionally out of vehicles, around corners and things like that, you can definitely kill yourself with this weapon, because the missile is going to go straight up and hit the ceiling or wall in front of you. And you always take a risk when you peek to lock on. You're just going to corner check, peek, lock on, and back, and try to shoot that missile just as you scoot around the corner. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes you get hosed and you die. You can't shoot it at all in close quarters combat, so we can't do any Modern Warfare 3 style suicide javelin tricks, or javelin glitch is what we used to call it. Or you also can't like lock onto your feet and kill yourself when you know you're about to die and just like leave a little trap for the enemy team that comes to your loot. That won't work. You have to lock onto stuff that's relatively far away, so it has pretty much no use up close. And in my opinion, those are all flaws. Those are all problems. Those are all opposite of utility. But I think the biggest flaw is that the missile takes like 10 to 15 seconds to land sometimes, kind of depending on where enemies are on the map, how far away they are, if they're moving, high, low elevation. It can vary quite a lot, but at the end of the day, if you're doing really long-range lock-ons, it can take a very long time for the missile to come down and hit. Enemies in this game are cracked out COD players. They're all hyped up on Adderall, bouncing around. They're likely to move. They're not likely to sit in one spot for very long, or if they are going to sit in a spot, it's going to be in the dark corner of a stairwell in a place that your missile will never reach. The people sitting on buildings and fields and stuff like that are usually moving, so it's very difficult to hit them. If they're camping, usually when the first missile lands, the camping is over, and they're kind of moving around and trying to get out of the range of your weapons, or, well, they're just going to stay mobile so that it's more difficult for you to hit them. Reload time on the JOKR is super slow unless you're running amped. It's actually pretty great with amped. I really like the perk amped. I love being able to swap weapons quickly, and in this case, being able to swap weapons quickly and reload my launcher is a huge benefit. So, opinion time on the JOKR viability. The JOKR is a super specialty fun weapon, and it is not broadly viable. And I say that because I know that there's going to be people in the comments that tell me they always run the JOKR, get a ton of kills with it, they're best, they're the JOKR master, it can do all these things, I didn't really give it a fair shake. And I don't think that's true. I think that there are far too many downsides and far too few times where the weapon is useful. there are definitely some times the weapon is very useful, especially downtown to clear out campers, really shaking people up in a final couple of zones in a field, harassing a team. Vehicle lock-ons are pretty hilarious if they don't have the trophy system sitting on them. You can do a lot of neat things with the Joker, and I will not deny that. You can definitely squad wipe. There's the opportunity to do all kinds of crazy stuff, but the odds of you doing it are incredibly low because of the speed of the missile and all of the various downsides regarding the weapon. And I wouldn't say this is something that I would carry with me all the time, except for troll weapon fun games. When I'm going to use goofy weapons, when I'm going to have fun, when I'm going to get 3 people in a helicopter and we're all going to shoot javelins at people, yes, that's great, that's hilarious, it works. But would I use this in a tournament? Would I use this in a serious game? Would I use this if I were trying to win? Probably not. I think I would avoid it and take a more reliable secondary weapon instead. And finally, one of the problems that you're going to have when you use this weapon is that high skill enemies will not let you kill them with the Joker. You will probably get to land 1 missile on them. Honestly, maybe not even that, because they'll probably see you shooting it. They will adapt very quickly. They'll move indoors, they'll move undercover, they'll move inside windows, they'll throw down trophy systems. They'll just sit there and watch you and reposition every time you shoot to somewhere else, so that the odds of you hitting them are quite low, and sweaty enemies tend to have EOD anyway. So the higher skill your lobbies and enemies get, the less useful the Joker is. Now, when I'm in a low skill lobby, when I am blessed to be matched against bad teams, it's pretty good. It actually worked well. I can pound them, I can delete them, I can primarily harass. It works okay against medium skill lobbies. People adapt, but you can still kind of surprise them. But really good players, those guys that all have the CDL skins that you can't tell if their aim is legit or hacking, they're not going to sit around and let you hit them with the Joker no matter how hard you try. They're just too mobile, too fast, too many trophy systems, too much EOD. They're just not going to play games and let that happen. And because of that, I can't say that the Joker is broadly viable. I can't say that it'll work in every lobby against every skill set in every situation. It's just not. It's just a hyper specialty weapon that you can only use sometimes. And that's it for the in-depth of this episode. It was very opinion heavy. I'm going to share one more opinion at the end, and that's that I'm getting very, very sick of hackers. I enjoy Warzone. I enjoy Battle Royales. I still enjoy COD after decades of play, but I am just about to be fed up with hackers, and to the point where I don't want to play when I can't even tell if I'm playing super good enemies that are just like legitimately talented with their aim, or if I'm looking at people that have soft hacks where they toggle them on and off, where they just have wall hacks and not any other kind of hacks, and all sorts of weird. Man, God, while recording the Joker episode, we ran into so many hackers and it was so frustrating, and I'm really hoping in the next season that Infinity Ward fixes this problem. Guys, that is all for this in-depth episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.